Hello again and welcome to ISAC Software Academy Linux course. Today we will be covering the cron and at commands to help you with your scheduling and automation tasks. We will first be covering some basic theory of Crontab and how it is used with the cron daemon, or daemon. I prefer to pronounce it as daemon. Daemons will be covered in greater depth later. For now, think of it much like you would a Windows service. Crontab is short for cron table and is a file that lists cron jobs. A cron job is a task that you require to be run, and it usually lists a specific time with a specific interval for it to be repeated at. Each user also has their own cron table so that they can list their own cron jobs separately from other users, very specifically separate from the root user. The Crontab command has a few options, such as -L, which lists all of the jobs listed in the Crontab, -R, which removes all of the cron jobs listed in the Crontab by deleting the Crontab. The -U command allows you to change which user is used to run the command that you specify. By specifying a text file, you can make a cron table from the contents of that text file. As you can see, the command listed here would put all cron jobs that are listed in the cronjobs.txt file into the currently logged in user's cron table. If you wished to put this in a different user's cron table, it would be advisable to use the -U parameter mentioned earlier. The other option to change which user's cron table is used is if you wish it to be the root user's cron table, then put sudo sudo in front of the command. This allows you to run as the root user for that specific command. After doing so, this would add all of the cron jobs listed in cronjobs.txt into the root user's cron table. The at command is what we will cover now. This command is considerably more simplistic than cron or crontab and allows you to run commands just as you would with crontab. Here you can see there is a command listed for the at command, which states at 6 AM July 1 echo new financial year has begun, and this is ended by the $D, which means Control D, which tells the at command that you have finished entering commands. This command will print out the text new financial year has begun to standard output, which in most cases would be the screen, and in this instance a command line screen on the 1st of July at 6 in the morning. Obviously there are other uses rather than simply outputting text to a screen, and in fact it is preferable to use this to run other script files that allow more involved and complicated operations. Many people will use these commands to permit backups of critical files on an automated basis, which is one of the main advantages of using these tools. The command has, as the Crontab command had, several parameters that you can supply to it. The -l parameter works the same as it did with Crontab, in that it lists jobs that have already been applied. In this list you will be able to see a number that identifies an individual job in the queue. This number is used with the other parameter -r, which removes a job listed using the job number to the left in the list. As I have stated here, the command is less complicated, but also does not give enough flexibility to completely replace Cron. We will now see some practical examples of Cron and We will be starting with the Crontab command and going through all of its features, and then moving on to the command and its associated features. To start with, I will demonstrate that before using the Crontab command, there is no Crontab file available for my user in the user section of the Crontab files. As you can see, these are located in the /var/spool/cron, and then after this point you'll see that there is crontabs. You will also note that there are @jobs and @spool listed here. Now these are all three directories, and we will be covering the @jobs and @spool directories a little later. For the moment, we will be listing the contents of the crontabs directory, and as you can see, it is presently empty. At this point, we are going to go in and edit the crontab for our user, which you do using the -e as we covered before. Upon doing this, you will most likely encounter a request to determine which editor you wish to use. This happens the first time it is run, presuming that the environment variables are not set for the default editor. I have chosen to use Nano as it's very simplistic, and I would expect that if you are just learning, that you may want to do the same. Once you're in the Crontab editing interface, scroll down to the bottom, and it gives you some information here on this line as an example of how you can put in a command in Crontab. Down the bottom here, we're going to mimic this somewhat by putting in the time. Now I'm going to make it a little bit more expedient so that we can see the result sooner. So I'm going to put in couple of minutes time, and keep in mind that white space means very little. What I mean by white space is tabs or spaces or anything where you can't see an actual character, and as such you can enter in this in a formatted way so that it makes more sense when you're looking at it. However, white space will make a difference in the commands themselves. Now what I'm doing here is making a command that will write to a text file called test.txt in /home/isac/desktop, which we will see pop up on our desktop over in the corner as soon as the command is run. Now I've done Control X to say exit, and I will be saying yes to save and hitting enter to save to that Crontab file. Now at this point I will just show you that the file does pop up, and double clicking on it shows that it does in fact output "it works" to that text file. Now going back to our previous command where we listed the contents of the Crontabs directory, you'll now see that there is an ISAC account file here for the Crontab to use. If we attempt to actually list out the contents in this, it will fail, as I'll show you now. And I've actually forgotten to change this to a cat command, I apologize. And once changing it to the cat command, it will actually list it out properly. And as you can see, this file has our exact command that we listed that has gone off at the correct time. Obviously, there's not a lot of real use to listing out "it works" into a text file on the desktop. However, this could be done to echo out a log file after you have run a particular script that you wished to run, for example a backup script, and this would be a great way for you to be able to see what you have actually done and succeeded with. We will now move on to the @ command after we clean this up here, and the @ command has the other two folders that we saw earlier. However, I will give you the same example that was provided in the theory. Upon hitting enter, we can type in any command we wish. In this case, we will be listing out a test command to a text file again, which will never run, of course, but just to get into the habit of actually doing this, we can do this again. When we hit enter at the end of that command, we hold down Control and hit the D key, and this will put in that job as job 1 for that specific time. Now, as it's past July this year, it actually has put it into the next year, being that that is the next time that July will be there. Now, if we do another random job that we will do for the time in 2 minutes time, and then we can do that exact same command again, only this time it will be executed Control D to end, and let's fast forward a little bit here just so that you can see it happen. Alright, there you go, you can see it has popped up and it has echoed out the exact text that we put in. Now, the @ command also has the -L, which lists out the tasks. As you can see, the only task that remains is actually the one that has not been executed yet. So if we simply add another one far down the line, that's not going to be an issue, then you'll see that it actually puts in another target in here. However, it states that the job number for the latest one is job number 3. Now this is because our task that has already executed was task number 2, and it keeps this number in sequence. Now, you can remove a job by simply doing -R and the job number. So I will remove number 1 and I will relist it so that you can see that only number 3 is there. This covers our introduction to cron and @ commands. Thank you.